Okay, welcome back. So now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over these. There's 8 steps. I only have 7 listed. I ran out of room. I write too big sometimes. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read these. Some of these are a little shortened, so I'm going to explain some of these steps. So as we're graphing rational functions, this is the steps you want to keep in mind as you're graphing these. First of all, you want to determine the y-intercept by evaluating the function f equal to 0, right? Find out where is the function equal to 0, right? Just using the definition of the y-intercept. 2, determine where the x-intercepts are located if they exist, right? So how do you determine that? Well, you set the function equal to 0, right? Find all the values of x where the function is equal to 0. So that's going to be where the numerator is equal to 0. So for rational functions, to find the x-intercepts, all you have to do is look at the numerator, set the numerator equal to 0, and that's where you're going to find the x-intercepts. Remember, if you want to find the the vertical asymptotes, you're going to set the denominator equal to 0, right? And that's step number 3. Step number 3 is identify any vertical asymptotes and then graph them as dotted lines, right? And again, how do you identify the vertical asymptotes if they exist? Look at the denominator, set the denominator equal to 0, and find all of the values that make the denominator 0. Okay, those are the restricted values, and hence those are going to give you the location of the vertical asymptotes along the x-axis. Okay, 4. Determine if the function has any horizontal asymptotes or slant or oblique asymptotes. Okay, graph those with dotted lines. 5. Determine where the graph crosses the horizontal asymptotes if it does, right? So you want to find out where those points are located, okay? And again, if applicable. So it may or may not cross, the graph of the function may or may not cross the horizontal asymptotes, okay? 6, if test for symmetry is easy, do it, and then graph additional points using symmetry. Okay. 7, plot at least one point inside each of the following intervals. That would be intervals between asymptotes, vertical asymptotes, and x-intercepts, right? In between x-intercepts too. So anywhere where there's an interval that goes from, let's say, between x-intercepts, between asymptotes, between an x-intercept and a vertical asymptote. So, you know, all of those different parts along the x-axis, right? So those are going to create intervals, and what you want to do is plot a point within each of those intervals, okay? At least one, okay? And then, well, why would you want to do that? Well, one of the reasons is because you want to know, is the graph above the horizontal asymptote? Is it below the horizontal asymptote? Is it above the x-axis, below the x-axis? You know, those sorts of things, right? It helps with graphing. And then step number 8, which isn't listed here, is just sketch the graph, right? So use all the information from 1 through 7 to sketch the graph, which is step number 8. All right, now we'll do some examples.